The maid's voice cracked, barely sounding human anymore. Please. Please, stop. The baby. The room froze. The crying stopped for just a second, just long enough for everyone to feel how wrong the silence was. And that's when the front door behind them slowly opened. No one noticed at first. They were all staring at the woman in the red dress, a hand raised, a face twisted with something far uglier than anger. The baby lay on the marble floor between them, tiny hands shaking, eyes squeezed shut, unaware of how close everything was to ending. The maid dropped to her knees. "I'll do anything," she whispered. "Please! Not the baby!" The woman laughed. A cold, careless sound that didn't belong in a house like this. She was supposed to be perfect. The billionaire's fiancé. Eleganta, educated, untouchable. But in that moment, there was nothing elegant about her at all. The baby cried again, louder now, desperate. And then a voice cut through the room like a blade. "What the hell is going on?" Every head turned. The billionaire stood in the doorway, still in his tailored suit, briefcase hanging from his hand. He had come home early. No assistance. No security. Just him. The woman in red froze. The maid's face collapsed with relief and terror all at once. The billionaire took one slow step forward, his eyes dropping to the floor. To the child, then to the maid. Then back to his fiancée, and something in his face changed. Not anger. Something worse. Because anger passes, what filled his eyes didn't. If your heart is already racing, stay with me. Because what happens next is why this story shook an entire family and why the truth was buried for so long. The baby wasn't supposed to be here. That was the first secret. The child belonged to the maid, a quiet woman who had worked in that house for years, who cleaned in silence, who never made eye contact. She had nowhere else to go after her husband died in an accident at one of the billionaire's construction sites. No lawsuit, no settlement, just a small envelope and a warning to keep quiet. She brought the baby to work only because she had no choice. The fiancé hated that. From the first day, she complained. About the crying, about the mess, about how a baby didn't belong in a home meant for high-profile dinners and investors. The billionaire never noticed. He was always traveling, always busy, always trusting, until that night. "Explain," he said quietly. The fiancée turned instantly soft, her voice sweet, rehearsed. She said the baby was unsafe, that the maid was careless, that she was just trying to help. The maid shook her head violently. "No," she cried. She was angry. She said the baby ruined everything. She said, "Enough," the fiancé snapped, her mask slipping. "You're just the help." The room went dead silent. That was when the billionaire knelt down. He didn't touch the baby at first. Ehust looked in really, the fear. The red marks from being grabbed too hard. The way the child instinctively curled inward, already learning to protect itself. The billionaire stood up slowly, and then he did something no one expected. He turned to the maid and said, "Take the baby. Go to the guest room. Lock the door." The fiancé laughed again. "You're taking her side." She scoffed. "Over me." He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. One tap. Then another. Security footage filled the screen. The fiancée's smile vanished, because she had forgotten something. The house was wired, every room, every corner, every angle. The billionaire had installed it years ago, not for the staff, but for his enemies. And tonight, it exposed the person he trusted most. The footage showed her earlier that evening. The shouting, the grabbing, the moment the maid begged, the raised hand, the baby screaming. The maid sobbed as she watched. The fiancé backed away slowly. This isn't what it looks like." The billionaire looked at her like a stranger. "No," he said calmly. "It's exactly what it looks like. If you've stayed with me this far, don't leave now, because this isn't where it ends. This is where everything breaks open." Police arrived within minutes. The engagement was over before the ring even came off her finger. But that wasn't T. The real shock. 2 days later, the billionaire visited the maid not at the mansion, but at a small hospital room. The baby lay sleeping peacefully. He handed the maid a folder. Inside were documents, medical coverage, legal protection, a trust fund, and one final page. An investigation order. The construction accident that killed her husband had never been an accident. The billionaire had just learned that night who he had almost married, and what kind of man he refused to be anymore. He paid for the funeral that should have happened years ago. He made sure the company publicly accepted responsibility. He shut down an entire division. And the maid, she never worked another day in fear again. Years later, people would say the billionaire changed overnight. They were wrong. He changed the moment a maid begged him to see the truth, and he finally did. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from in the comments. Stories like this deserve to be heard, because sometimes the quietest voices are the ones that save lives. Thanks for watching.